Picture this. A mom in Ohio pushes her cart through the grocery store, frowning at the rising price of milk and eggs. Across the country, a farmer in Iowa stares at his fields of soybeans, knowing they may never make it to Chinese markets again.
Meanwhile, a college student in California clicks checkout on a cheap hoodie from overseas, only to see a new tax added at the last moment.
These aren't random stories. They're all part of the same bigger shift. In his return to the White House, President Trump has issued more than 200 executive orders in just 1 year, which is faster and fiercer than any modern president. It's like watching a tidal wave of policy crash over the economy. Some Americans are cheering. Others are scrambling to adjust. And the rest of the world, they're bracing for the aftershocks. So today, in another episode of the series What If in BrainFuel Reads, let's ask, what if America under Trump's era is truly being reshaped by these executive orders? What's his plan? How does it ripple through our daily lives? And what can we do to prepare for the storm? Firstly, have you ever wondered why there seems to be a constant stream of executive orders coming from Trump? To really grasp this, we need to dive into his unique approach to power. For him, Congress often feels like a slow-moving train, bogged down by endless debates and resistant to his vision. Executive orders, on the other hand, are like a fast track. They're direct, quick, and often unstoppable in the short run. Think of it as a strategy of shock and speed. By signing a flurry of orders at lightning speed, Trump creates a whirlwind that overwhelms the political landscape, forcing his opponents to scramble and respond. It's not just about governing. It's about reshaping the entire playing field before anyone can mount a significant counterattack. And what's the common thread in these orders? They all aim to put America first, boosting domestic industries, slashing regulations, and rewriting trade rules to give the U.S. a competitive edge. Let's talk about one of Trump's early and bold moves, energy. He didn't just ease restrictions. He took a sledgehammer to them, declaring that America would no longer rely on anyone else for fuel. This shift means lower gas prices for us at home, and some relief from those pesky energy bills that always seem to creep up. But this isn't just an economic squeeze play. It's shaking the very foundations of the global energy market. OPEC, once the big player controlling oil supply and prices, is now suddenly up against a flood of American oil. For them, it's not just a hit to their revenue, it's a loss of power. And don't forget about Russia. With their heavy reliance on energy exports, the geopolitical ripple effects are profound. So in short, these moves aren't just about immediate benefits, they're about changing the game altogether. Trump had some big ambitions, especially when it came to energy. But he didn't stop there. He went ahead and established a brand new federal department with a straightforward mission: cut out the waste and slice through the regulations. The goal? Save trillions of dollars and liberate businesses from all the red tape that can choke them. For many companies, this move felt like a breath of fresh air, opening doors to new opportunities. However, there's a flip side to this coin. With fewer government jobs on the table, layoffs became a harsh reality for some. When cuts to social programs come into play, many ordinary Americans could find themselves losing benefits they depend on. What might seem like efficiency on paper could translate into less money circulating in our communities, diminishing families' spending power, and putting more strain on those already juggling tight budgets. And then came the tariffs. Trump's administration set its sights on America's top trading partners, Canada, Mexico, and China, introducing hefty taxes on their goods. He pitched it as a way to protect our borders and tackle unfair trade practices. But let's face it, tariffs are taxes, and they don't just magically disappear. They land right on the shoulders of consumers. So what does that mean for everyday families? Suddenly, the price tags on cars, fresh produce, and electronics start creeping up. It's not just a complex trade issue. It hits home when you're at the grocery store or trying to manage back-to-school shopping. And the plot thickens. Countries like China, Mexico, and even the longtime ally Canada didn't just sit back and take it. They fired back with their own tariffs, hitting American farmers, manufacturers, and exporters hard. What began as an effort to protect American jobs threatened to spiral into a full-blown trade war. affecting not just big businesses, but families across the nation. And if that wasn't enough, Trump made a significant move by targeting one of the most notable changes in consumer habits: online shopping. For ages, Americans enjoyed the perk of duty-free imports on small packages. If your purchase was under $800, you could snag goods from abroad without worrying about extra fees. But guess what? That loophole is now history. This shift hits hard, especially against foreign e-commerce giants that have been flooding the US market with affordable items. While it might seem like a win for local businesses, everyday shoppers are feeling the sting. Expect to see higher prices and fewer bargains on the things you love. Small businesses that relied on those budget-friendly supplies from overseas are suddenly caught in a tough spot. What used to feel like a vast global marketplace is closing in, leaving us with higher barriers and limited choices. And finally, perhaps the most dramatic shift, Trump's introduction of reciprocal tariffs. The idea is simple. If another country slaps a 25% tax on American products, the US will respond in kind with a 25% tax on their goods. Sounds fair, right? But here's where it gets tricky. In theory, it might seem like a level playing field, but in reality, it sparks a dangerous cycle of retaliation. Trade wars can escalate quickly, unraveling supply chains and affecting consumers worldwide. What Trump views as a way to balance the scales, many economists warned, could lead us into a complicated maze of global economic fragmentation. So where does all this leave America? In the short run, the picture looks like revival. Oil workers in Texas and North Dakota are back on the rigs, paychecks flowing into towns that once felt forgotten. Steel mills in the Rust Belt roar with new life, furnaces blazing as orders return. For these communities, it feels like a long-awaited comeback story, the promise of Made in America brought back to life. Families who once feared unemployment now talk about stability again. But for millions of others, the story is different. In suburban supermarkets, parents are forced to put back items at the checkout line as prices edge higher with every trip. A small manufacturer in Ohio, who relies on imported parts, watches costs climb while customers demand lower prices. Exporters, from soybean farmers in Iowa to tech companies in California, stare at contracts that once guaranteed sales overseas, now torn up by retaliatory tariffs. And investors? They grow restless, scanning headlines about trade wars and supply chain breakdowns, wondering how long the boom can last before the bust begins. What starts as protection slowly begins to look like isolation. America may be building walls to shield itself, but those same walls risk boxing it in. And beyond America's borders, the ripple effects are just as dramatic, if not more so. In Riyadh and Moscow, energy ministers hold emergency meetings, watching U.S. oil flood the market and crush prices. Countries whose budgets depend on high oil revenues scramble to cut spending, sparking unrest at home. In Germany, factories hum with efficiency, but shipments pile up, waiting for buyers who no longer come. The world's great export economies suddenly face shrinking demand, forcing them to rethink decades of dependence on the American consumer. Across Asia, governments and corporations begin forging tighter regional alliances. Trade routes are rerouted, supply chains rewired. The message is clear: America is no longer the anchor it once was. Trust has eroded, and the rest of the world is learning to live without it. And for ordinary people, the consequences are everywhere. A shopkeeper in Mexico City raises prices as imports from the U.S. dry up. A family in Beijing pays more for everyday goods as tariffs trickle down into the market. A young worker in Europe sees his factory hours cut because exports stall. If this trajectory continues, the outcome is chilling. Global growth slows, currencies tremble, and inflation spreads like wildfire. Jobs vanish not just in America, but across continents. It becomes painfully clear: when America redraws the rules of trade, the world doesn't just watch, it bleeds. So what if America under Trump's second term really is being reshaped by executive orders? For some, it feels like a comeback story, an America standing tall, reclaiming strength and sovereignty. For others, it feels like a storm: rising prices, shrinking opportunities, and a sense that the ground is shifting beneath their feet.
And for the rest of the world, it's a reminder that when America takes a step, the earth trembles far beyond its borders.
Every signature in Washington sends ripples across oceans, through markets, and into the lives of ordinary people everywhere. We are sailing into uncharted waters. The rules are changing. The map is being redrawn, and none of us can stand still. The choices made today will echo for years, shaping not just economies, but the way we live, work, and dream about the future. This has been BrainFuel Reads, part of our What If series. If this breakdown sparked new thoughts for you, I'd love for you to join the journey, like, subscribe, and share so more people can fuel their minds with these questions. And as always, keep your brain fueled, because the world isn't slowing down, and neither should you.